Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. My name is JT Olson. I am one of your hosts. With me, as always, for like 3 or 4 shows in a row now, Garrett Ballard. Garrett, how are you today?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Another week, another hard week working, capped off with a good podcast. Tweaked my neck at work, so working through that. That's always fun, but we'll get there. We'll be on the road to recovery soon.
Yeah, I mean, we're all on the long road now. I mean, cap off is kind of a perfect phrase for where we're at because the NFL season has been capped off.
That's correct.
It's done. It's over. We are in the long, cold months now that go well through July and August.
Only cold if you're not looking for information. The NFL never sleeps, JT.
I don't know. I'm up here on the shores of Lake Michigan. It's plenty cold.
Hey, weather-wise, that's fine. In terms of action in the NFL, nah, it's hot as ever.
That's true, actually. In fact, the Buccaneers, they've been making a little bit of waves today with a couple of new coaching hires.
They have been. There's another potential draft implications coming along with these hires. Nothing for sure, but some hires align with some good prospects at positions of need. See what we'll get.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about Liam Cohen and his connections to Kentucky and potentially Ray Davis.
Yep.
Well, now the Bucs are going back to that school and only strengthening that bond with an assistant offensive line coach.
Yep.
He wasn't an analyst in Kentucky, so we didn't really get to see him in the same kind of coaching capacity. But going back to the SEC, going back to the college ranks, some familiarity there.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to really try and sit here and dig into the assistant offensive line coach hire because we don't want to. But
we just don't know enough about him.
Yeah, like that we can't. There's nothing for us to go off of. But yeah, I mean, Liam Cohen showing loyalty to maybe someone that he thought was bright at Kentucky and clearly stood out, being an offensive analyst there. Working your way through football is not easy, and he very clearly made an impact and left an impression on Liam Cohen enough to bring him up to the big leagues to a pretty significant jump from offensive analyst to assistant offensive line coach of an NFL program. That's pretty substantial.
Yeah, and going college to pro as well. So congratulations to unnamed offensive line coach who I didn't take the time to look him up.
I'll find it if you just want to keep talking.
But not the only coach the Buccaneers hired. Again, they went back to the college ranks and they hired themselves a wide receivers coach. That is Brian McClendon, the wide receiver coach and passing game coordinator from the University of Georgia, back to the SEC, taking him from the Bulldog dynasty. This one's a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I want to say the assistant offensive line coach, his name is Brian Pacucci.
I didn't try to look that one up. I would have butchered that name.
Yeah, I apologize if that is incorrect. But then, yeah, like back to McClendon. Just see it now. Among the players that this guy has coached at in college, Deebo Samuel and Todd Gurley are some headliners. And then you look at just this last year, Ladd McConkey at Georgia. Pretty darn good wide receiver. One that we've mentioned before of someone that we like for the Bucs. And this only strengthens that, that connection.
So this guy coached Deebo Samuel at South Carolina?
South Carolina? According to Greg Auman, yes.
Okay, I saw Greg's tweet where he was at Georgia and at Oregon, but I did not see South Carolina in that one. It must have been a different tweet.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Deebo Samuel, pretty good football player.
Pretty good wide receiver. Yeah, he's all right.
Ladd McConkey,
different
looking
mold,
really good.
Yeah, very different receivers, but Both very good.
Both I would love to have on this football team. So if you can get any semblance of either of them, I'm happy.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking up his bio right now just to get a little bit of background on him. Let's see. He was a graduate assistant at Georgia in the late 2000s, like 2007 to 2008, and then he became a running back coach in 2009, and he held that position until 2015. So that's Sony Michel, Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb. There's a lot of good running backs that came out of Georgia in that time period.
Mm-hmm.
He was the head running backs coach too, not like an assistant or anything. But and then he was actually, wow, I didn't know this. He was the interim head coach at UGA when Mark Richt got fired.
Yeah, and again at
November
Oregon, it
20
sounds. I think that's what Greg had said in his tweet. He kind of took over for both of those positions when they transitioned.
Yeah, here's the list: Isaiah Crowell, Todd Gurley, Keith Marshall, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. A lot of very, very talented running backs, and then the wide receivers. I'm trying to find. It looks like Georgia is only has his time at Georgia on his bio, which is a bit of a annoyance.
How long was he at Georgia there?
He was at Georgia from 2007 until 2015, and then he went to South Carolina as the co-offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach in 2016, and then he got the co removed and became the full-time offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach in 2018. And then he moved to Oregon in 2020 and became the pass game coordinator and wide receivers coach, was the interim head coach at Oregon in 2021. And then he went back to Georgia and was the pass game coordinator and wide receivers coach this last year. So
he didn't work with George Pickens at Georgia then?
He did not work with George Pickens at Georgia. I'm trying to think. Obviously you got Deebo Samuel in there at South Carolina. Who was the other one from South Carolina? Rico Dowdle. He was pretty talented. At the college level. Who are some Oregon guys that I'm forgetting?
Well, obviously Justin Herbert was there, I think, at that time.
Of course, he was the pass game coordinator.
Which I don't remember liking that Oregon passing offense. I feel like I was frustrated when I was watching Herbert.
I'm with you, but he's our wide receiver coach, so
I can live with
not
that.
our problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when Mario Cristobal left, he became the interim. So it's very clear that this is a trusted mind in terms of NFL, or not even NFL, just how football operates, right? This is someone that teams will go to and say, I trust you to do the right thing for the team. And that's shown up over the course of his coaching career so far. And it only speaks to why he's getting moved to the NFL at this point.
Yeah, and he's had a chance to work with some pretty significant college coaches. You talk about Mark Richt, he was at Georgia forever, did a really nice job there. Couldn't get him over the hump, but he was a very quality coach.
Yep.
Cristobal, I thought, did a nice job at Oregon until he left for Miami.
Yeah, and then obviously Kirby Smart.
Yeah, another pretty good coach. He's lost one game in the last 3 years. So,
and then you talk about the South Carolina years. That's still like Will Muschamp. He's a very successful SEC coach, not head coach, but just a coach. So,
yeah,
some good programs
to learn from.
Yeah.
Now, Liam Cohen. That'll be the next big name he learns under.
That's right.
So, just some interesting names there. Kind of rounding out this staff. I don't know if there's any more open spots that they have to fill.
They got the special teams coach. They got the O-line coach.
Now wide receivers.
Did they need a running back coach?
No, I think they kept Pete from last year.
Okay. Yeah, I think
tight ends. I think they lost an assistant tight end coach.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything substantial though. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think it's kind of rounded into shape. There's some names that have some buzz to them. I think the offensive line coach, that's a fairly well respected name. This wide receivers coach. Now that's for a guy who is kind of building his own staff from the ground up. He could have done a worse job on paper.
Absolutely. And I like the offensive line coach hire. That Saints offensive line is a very good one. Special teams coach, I don't really know. It's hard to be worse than they were. Those were my notes on that.
Well, if you ask a Giants fan, apparently this guy's going to try.
Yeah, sick.
So I'm not going to sweat it too much because, like you said,
Yeah.
special teams hasn't been good here in a minute, and it really hasn't hindered them too much as long as they've got their kicking and punting figured out.
Yeah,
As long as they
Camarda's great. McLaughlin looks to be great. So just manage it well. Just make the right decisions.
Yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep over whoever the special teams coordinator is, good or bad.
Correct.
But let's move away from, the Bucs for a second. There's a Bucs podcast. We have to acknowledge the Super Bowl.
Of course.
It was, I think, a lot of times a sloppy game. I didn't come away particularly impressed with either team. I think it's probably one of the I don't want to say the worst champions I've seen in a long time, but I think this is probably one of the weakest championship teams I've seen in a long time. But the ending of this game was really entertaining. Those last 2 drives by the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes things. I was on the edge of my seat for 10, 15 minutes, and I think that kind of salvaged an otherwise mediocre game.
Yeah, it was a very exciting ending. All I have to say is that I was correct. I took the Chiefs plus 2.5 to win outright anyway. I said that. And the defense was outstanding. Trent McDuffie probably should have won MVP if we're being honest.
I bet on him to win MVP.
I don't really. That would have been insane if that hit. I don't really care about that holding. He should have won, to be honest. He played an outstanding football game.
If he would have got a pick 6 in overtime, that would have been him.
Yeah,
and I would have had $1,000 in my pocket.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it was a fun ending. Second overtime Super Bowl in history. The other one, sorry, Falcons fans, but your team sucks.
It's not great.
Yeah, I don't really care. And also,
Kyle Shanahan.
The Buccaneers are still the only team to ever beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, how much stock do you put into that? Because I look back to that 2021-2020 team that the Chiefs had. I feel like it was a lot better than this version of the Chiefs.
I mean, they had Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, good player Tyreek Hill.
They had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce 3 years younger. That was obviously the offensive line was lackluster, but that didn't seem to matter against any other team they played that season
or this season, because this offensive line was lackluster. I mean,
they had some struggles. Yeah,
they didn't even have Thuney for this game.
Yeah, they didn't have Thuney. You're right, or Tooney. I'm not sure, but either way, I'm putting all the stock in the world I can into it. I mean, if the Bucs are not winning a Super Bowl, I want Patrick Mahomes to win it because that makes that team look that much better, to be honest. So,
yeah, I really, the more I look back on that, the more I really reaffirm that Bucs team was one of the greatest teams we've ever seen.
They were so good.
Super Bowl history.
They were so good. I mean, they didn't score a touchdown. Come on. It was
Patrick Mahomes.
9 points. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Kelce. Who else did they have then?
They had the Honey Badger back then.
They had Tyrann Mathieu. Yep.
Chris Jones still in his prime.
Chris Jones. Yep.
I think they still had Snead on that team, who's a very good corner.
I think he was probably a rookie. So
I think he was a rookie.
Yeah. So not as great, but still he was still a very good rookie corner. I mean,
yeah, he had a really good year as a rookie.
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the better free agent corners this year. I'm pretty sure, probably the best. Don't hold me to that, but that Bucs team was unreal.
I still believe 100%, minus a Chris Godwin knee injury and Antonio Brown dancing his way off the field, the Bucs go back to back next year.
Yeah, that team. Oh my God, man! Someone put a video up of Tom Brady that season. Oh man, he was unreal. That watching that guy for those first 2 years here, that was some football, man. I mean, like you said, if Chris Godwin doesn't go down and Antonio Brown doesn't, whatever that was, I'm with you, man. They win again. They do.
And then we're talking about the Buccaneers dynasty and the Chiefs dynasty kind of coinciding.
Yeah.
But didn't happen. Wasn't meant to
That's
be. We just have the one crown jewel of those Super Bowl teams, better than any of the Chiefs teams have been, because I think, the first Super Bowl they won, it was trying to run it back, very much the same team they had when they lost to the Bucs.
I mean, yeah, if we're talking from that 2020 season till now, yeah, I mean I think maybe last year's Chiefs team has an argument because I know the receivers aren't as good, but the offensive line was very good that last year for the Chiefs. It was very good. Patrick Mahomes, did he win MVP last year? I think he won MVP last year.
He did.
Yeah, like that's the one that you're like, they might win, but other than that, the Bucs win.
See, I don't think last year's team was as good as their first Super Bowl when they had Tyreek Hill, just because of how dynamic he is. And I know, who was the tackle they lost last year? Brown?
Yeah.
He was a really good player for them.
Yeah.
Orlando Brown Jr. So, yeah, offensive line with Brown and Thuney and Creed Humphrey and Smith.
Yep.
Really, really good unit.
Very.
But I don't know. Tyreek Hill is a big trade-off there. A younger Kelsey's a big trade-off there.
For sure. And I mean, Kelsey was still great last year. Like,
he was.
All I'm saying is that if there's a year that would combat that Bucs team, it's last year's Chiefs team.
Maybe. I don't know.
But
I still think the Bucs would crush them.
Hey, I'm with you. That's just the one. That's the one that they might not. But
fair enough. I mean, you know the stock I put into trench play, and they had it. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's all I'm saying. Like, the trench play for the Chiefs last year was top notch. That's the hang up for me, is like Tyreek Hill can be gone. They've proven they can win without him. But if you can keep Patrick Mahomes on his feet, you have a shot, right? Like, that's the even if you can't, you have a shot, because that guy's just unreal. But yeah, it would be fun to watch.
So, as much as I love reminiscing about the last Bucs Super Bowl, since we're on the topic,
yeah,
this Bucs team is not close to what they were when they won the Super Bowl. There's still a sizable gap. But how sizable is it? What would you think is the time frame to where the Bucs need to build it up to get back to that point where they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender? You expect them to be there.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to keep the big P. You got to keep Wirfs, Winfield, and Evans, right? You got to keep WWE. Just came up with that on the spot. That's pretty good, if you ask me.
It's Creamsicle Chronicle podcast.
Yeah, keep WWE in Tampa. But those are the big ones. You got to shore up the rest of the offensive line, because an interior of Hainsey, Stinney, and Mock is not the same as Marpet, Jensen, and who was it? Alex Kappa then? Yeah. It's not even close, right? And Mock showed promise. He looks good. The other two spots are not. As much as some people might disagree, I don't know if anyone does really, but you got to find a starting quality center or guard in the draft this year or in free agency. And then you got to get some receivers. I mean, you look at the team that won the Super Bowl: Evans, Godwin, Brown. You had Rob Gronkowski. You don't have a tight end can do that much for you. I mean, Leonard Fournette was playing ball that offseason or that postseason. Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, we hadn't really seen them play up to that level much anymore. Obviously, Levante David is still a stud, but Devin White hasn't played anywhere near the level he did in that playoffs. So I think in terms of what they have now, I still think they're probably a couple years out, unfortunately, because um, even if you re-sign Winfield, Wirfs, and Evans, uh, you got to get more pieces around them, and that takes more than one offseason, right? Unless you just go all in, and they have money, they don't have that much money, right? Um, you got to pay guys big contracts. You're not going to have endless amounts of money every year, and you only have so many draft picks you can pick with. So I think they're a couple years out. Um, if and then also that's can Baker keep it up, right? Like as much as he played tremendous ball last year, I don't think he has had two good seasons back to back. So there's a lot of question marks, but the time frame is medium term. I'll say like 2 to 3 years. They should, if all goes right, draft well, signings go well. They should be back in that hunt.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think if everything goes according to the plan, Bucks have a window opening in 2025 season,
Yep.
2 years from now.
Yep.
And that between now and then, that is addressing the offensive line and giving this offense a real identity. Because with Tom Brady, you knew what the Bucks were going to do. They were going to throw it all over the place. They were going to throw it deep. They were going to air it out. And Leonard Fournette was kind of that counterpunch. So, you're dropping 8 guys back. Cool. Here's 230 pounds coming at your face.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Baker Mayfield is not going to be that same quarterback. So, this offense won't be that same air it out. So, they're going to have to supplement that with a better running game. And starts up front. Adding a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson or Troy Fontenot, developing this offensive line to one of the better offensive lines in the game. It's got to be more of a San Francisco style where, McCaffrey's an all-pro and, they're going to run it down their throat. And that's kind of who they are. So they're going to run it. And they can throw it well enough with Brock Purdy to burn you.
Right.
I think the Bucs don't have to run it that well because they have a better quarterback from San Francisco, but that's kind of the same blueprint. You have to run it well. You have to set it up with play action and motion and a little bit of razzle dazzle, but you're coming at them on the ground. And if you try too hard to stop that, we got Mike Evans, we got Chris Godwin, we got Trey Palmer, we got Ladd McConkey. It's already happening.
Yeah. I'm with you. But I mean, the other thing you got to account for is players that might not be here in 2 years, right? I mean, you look at Levante David, as well as he's playing. He's not even guaranteed to come back next season, right? Like, we expect Mike Evans to be back, right? But that's an unknown right now. There's Chris Godwin. Obviously, is still a good football player, but do they re-sign him? I think his contract's up next year.
He's going into his final year, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, does he come back, right? Like, there's a lot of question marks at some key positions that are honestly a bit depleted now, right? And then we don't really know how it's going to look in a year from now. So, obviously, if everything goes well, like we said, if things go perfectly, looking at 2 years, but, things rarely, if ever, go perfectly, right? So, just going to have to be realistic with what's given to us when the option's there and when roadblocks arise.
Yeah, and I don't want to say Levante David is like the hinge piece, but if we're going into the 2025 season and he's coming off another great year and he's coming back for another possible go around, you got to feel really good about that defense still.
Oh, yeah.
Wirfs, David, Villa, Cansey's grown, Liaya's grown. They've added another pass rusher.
That's another thing. The corners are going to be free agents by the time that comes. I think Carlton Davis is what?
I think he's going into his last year this year.
And
but
Jamel
Dean will still be under contract, I think.
But he's the year after him, right?
I think he signed a 4-year deal in the offseason, so I think he'd still be on contract.
Okay, so scratch that. But still, that's a starting corner. Like, contracts expire in the NFL, which is tough, but it's gonna take a lot of effort. And I mean, they're gonna go for it, obviously, but it's gonna be tough.
Right. And obviously, Jason Light, he's earned our trust, he's earned respect. you feel good about him running the ship to make all those pieces fit.
Yep.
But there's a lot of unknowns from now to then.
Yep.
It has to happen sooner rather than later. It really has to be 2025, or you're looking at another kind of retool on the defense, kind of like we're going through with the offense right now, and you're setting up for 26, 27.
Correct.
So there's a lot of time between now and then. A lot of things can happen. You sign like Cushenberry, you draft Troy Fontenot, all of a sudden your offensive line's looking good, and you're thinking, okay, maybe we can make a dark horse run this year. But a lot has to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it has to. You got to get some contributions from some unlikely sources for sure, I think, if that's the case.
Yeah, I think we both agree it's not to be expected.
Correct.
But who's to say Buccaneers couldn't have a Detroit Lions-esque run in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, can they make an NFC championship? Yeah, I just don't think it's a Super Bowl winning team as it stands right now and as it will stand now. I don't think anything they do in the draft would put them into a Super Bowl contention for 2024.
I'd agree with you, but I also would say the Detroit Lions weren't Super Bowl contenders this year, and they were 30 minutes away from going. It was unexpected. They got hot at the right time. They played good ball. But that defense was so bad, I would have never thought they were a contender leading up to that.
Yeah, that's fine. But hey, I would love for them to prove me wrong. But that's just my thoughts right now.
Agreed. They'd be proving us both wrong. We neither expect that. But it could happen. You never know.
You never
Jason Light, make it happen.
Yep. Trade for. I was going to say the number 1 overall pick, but I don't want a quarterback. So
trade for Khalil Mack.
The 4th overall pick. Khalil Mack, I don't know. Trade for like Kayvon Thibodeau or something. Who knows?
I'm sure the Giants are just ready to give him away.
Sure, yeah.
All right. On the topic of defense, let's transition looking back on this past year and look at this Bucs defense. Now, this is the identity of the Bucs. This is where Todd Bowles is going to hang his hat. This is the stronger of the two units. So let's reflect. Let's take it all in, and let's give out our grades.
Yeah.
Okay. You got a position you want to start with?
Yeah, I'm going to start with are we doing D-line as a whole, or are we breaking it up?
Let's break it up because it's a pretty deep rotation.
Sure. I'm going to start with the interior. We'll do interior, and then we'll work like back. I'm going to give the interior a B+. Vita Vea is obviously just a stud always. Kalijah Cansey, when he got on the field after a couple weeks, looked outstanding, super disruptive, and just wreaked havoc in the backfield seemingly every game, every play. But, Will Golston, Logan Hall, the rotation on the other side was a bit underwhelming at times. That's the one part holding it back from an A. But if I was grading those two guys, it'd be like an A+, right? But you love the production you got from the two, and there's just the third that's kind of along for the ride.
Yeah, I think B+ is where my mind goes. I think V, he's always great. I don't think he had his best year this past year, so I'd give him personally a B+. Cansey, he surprised me, and I thought he could be really good. How good surprised me.
I also didn't expect it in this scheme.
No. Where he's got to take on bigger, stronger dudes more consistently with just 3 down linemen.
Yep.
It was unexpected, but when I saw him put Penei Sewell in a blender,
oh yeah,
I knew it was over. It's over for the league.
Yeah, you're looking great.
And I was listening to a draft podcast, and they were kind of reviewing rookies from this past year, and I don't remember who it was. And I don't even know if this stat is true. So, I'm just kind of going off what this one guy said doing a podcast. Cansey improved. He basically doubled his pressure rate in the playoffs. And he had a pass rush win rate of nearly 20%.
It's crazy.
It's bonkers for an interior lineman. But I believe it because he was playing so well. towards
Oh
the end
yeah.
of the year. Like he got better and better every week, which you expect from a rookie. And he was so disruptive so often, and the way Todd utilizes him in stunts and twists, and you don't know where he's coming from, and he's athletic enough to do it all at a high level. He was just playing fantastic.
Yeah.
So optimistic, obviously, about that carrying over into next year. I don't see any reason why it can't. More experience, more training camp. So
Oh yeah. So
feel great about him.
there's a thing like with Vita Vea, right? He missed his first training camp, I'm pretty sure, right? And he got off to a pretty slow start, and everyone's like, you passed on Derwin James for this?
Mm,
And then, second year in the league, he's the best nose tackle in the league, right? Like the guy takes a little bit, people like relax. But yeah, with just more time under his belt, he's going to be unstoppable. Like people like have been looking for that next like Aaron Donald level disruptor from Pitt, that undersized D tackle.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, of all the ones that have come out since Aaron Donald, the closest we've seen is Kalijah Cansey. And that's not saying Cansey will be equivalent to Aaron Donald, but if you're looking for a guy to fit that mold, right there.
Yeah, they don't build them like Kalijah Cansey.
Shout out Charlie Partridge. He's with the Colts now. The D line coach from Pitt. Dude has built just a factory over at Pitt for D linemen, but
Yeah, because they had a lot of good defensive linemen go into the league.
a bunch.
None like Kalijah Cansey, but
Yeah, who's that Aaron? Who's that 99?
yeah,
But,
that guy's okay.
uh,
Then just touching on the role players in that room, Will Golston, I thought he played well as a guy who's on his last legs.
Yeah.
He had more juice than I expected him to. Logan Hall, I would have liked to see a little more. I think he had some flashes, but for your top pick and the draft from his year, underwhelming.
all I'm saying, JT, is that I think two people here were right about Logan Hall.
I believe our exact words were the worst case scenario pick.
That is correct. And a lot of flashes, but never strings it together.
Yeah, which I think next
Hey.
year kind of his do or die year. If you don't get it next year, it's looking for that next guy.
Yep.
And then one guy who I really liked, and I hope they bring him back, was our backup nose tackle. And I can't remember his name now.
Greg Gaines?
Greg Gaines, thank you.
Yeah. He shut down the tush push against the Eagles in the playoffs. He got low.
He did.
Got lower than everyone else.
There.
Yeah.
I thought he did a really nice job. Like I didn't really feel like the Bucs missed a beat when V went out for a breather and Gaines came in. He's a great run defender.
Yeah, he's awesome. I would love to have him back for sure.
I would too. Give him one of those depth signing, 2-3 years. Keep him in Tampa. Don't let him get away.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, so let's move to the edge rushers, the pass rush.
Oof. Like a D, man. It was bad. Like the only good one was Yaya Diaby. Shaq is just, I mean, he doesn't have it anymore. Who else is there? Anthony Nelson. I mean, depth, like that's all that really matters. Joe Tryanchenko, I think the hope is gone, unfortunately. Like you were talking about Logan Hall's make or break year next year. That was this year for Joe Tryanchenko. Like you couldn't have sculpted a better role for him. Like the starting edge spot was his, right? And he didn't really do anything with it. There's a reason edge rusher is like the first or second need for the Bucs on everyone's list, right? It was just not a good spot. Yaya Diaby he's got one of the starting spots on lock for next year. The other one though, like you got to find someone new because the production there is just abysmal.
And JTS, he's such a frustrating case because in a lot of ways I thought he improved this year. You know, he was a really solid run defender. When Todd dropped him into coverage, he looked really good for a edge rusher in coverage. I think he improved in a lot of ways, but in the most important ways, he is still less than the sum of his parts.
Yeah, I am so okay with him as just a backup, right? Like if you're bringing him in every now and then, keep him fresh legs because he's super athletic. I'm so fine with that. but he just doesn't have what it takes to get to get sacks.
No, he's never really developed those pass rush moves that he can rely on.
Yeah, he can't
All the
finish.
physical gifts in the world. He can challenge the edge, but he doesn't have that counter to get him inside, and he hasn't put it together from a skill standpoint. Talent, he's great. Skill, that's something you have to develop, and he hasn't got there yet. And at this point, it's hard to think he will.
Right.
Which, at the beginning of the year, I would have said the same thing about Yaya Diaby as a rookie. Talent, physical gifts, off the charts. Still a little raw as a pass rusher, but he came in and blew the doors off.
I think the thing about Yaya is that in addition to the athleticism, he is so strong.
Strong.
I think JTS is lacking a bit of play strength. I think that's where he gets caught out sometimes. But Yaya, I mean, look at the dude looks like a creative character. Like, he's giant. His arms are so long, it's crazy. But I just think had to throw that in there real quick.
I'll be honest, I'm feeling really, really good about my draft comparison for Yaya Diaby these days as Terrell Suggs.
Oh, wow. That's some high praise.
And he has that kind of build and that physical skill set.
You're right.
I mean, Sizzle, he was an incredible pass rusher in college. He had just off the charts production. So that's kind of a ceiling for him. But Yaya kind of came in and exceeded my expectations in a way I wasn't ready for. So maybe he can get closer to that than I originally kind of thought he would.
He could. What's your grade for the edge rushers? I don't know if you said it.
I'd give them I'd probably give them a little bit of a higher grade than you. I'd probably give them a C+. Yaya exceeded my expectations. JTS, I thought, showed some growth. Nelson, still very solid depth piece. Shaq, his time is up.
Yeah.
He had a great run here in Tampa. He's going to be a Buccaneers legend forever. I really, really wanted him to have a bounce back year after everything he went through last offseason. But it just wasn't enough on the field for what he's supposed to be. So
the stars did not align.
No, but it's nothing but positive things for Shaq and for me. I wish him the best. I want nothing but good things for him. It's just over. His time is over.
Yeah, that's all it is. Linebackers, or you want to go corners? Let's do linebackers and then the secondary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Linebackers, I'm going to give like a B+. Levante David, A+. Specifically, KJ Britt, incredible when they needed him to step in. He showed a lot of promise and a lot of heart to get in there. Didn't really see much of Servassier Dennis, the rookie from Pitt. But when he was out there, I wasn't super impressed. Like earlier in the year, I think is when he was out there mainly. I might be mistaken, and then Devin White. Just your time's up in Tampa, my man. Honestly, appreciate the Super Bowl run, man. But since then, I couldn't get on board.
Yeah, he's kind of similar to Joe Tryon-Shoyinka in that way. Talent level, stupid good. It's just off the charts. The way the speed he has, the physicality he can have. It's just the mental stuff.
Yeah.
Freelancing in coverage, biting on fakes, leaving things wide open. It's just basic discipline stuff. It's all
that were flaws on tape in college, by the way.
Oh yes, that was definitely a pick I was critical of.
Yeah, but that was his big knock.
Looking back on it, it got us a Super Bowl, so I'm fine with it.
I have a jersey because of it.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, he's just not good enough.
Yeah. I'm with you.
To your point, Levante David, A++,
so good.
Hall of Fame career. I want to bring this stat up because it goes under the radar. It isn't talked about nearly enough. Levante David, top 10 all-time in tackles for loss. It's a stat that came into existence in 1999. So obviously a lot of great players didn't have their stats recorded for that. But just a couple of names in his era. Khalil Mack came into the league in 2014, so he's a little younger than Levante. 136 tackles for loss. Cameron Jordan came into the league in 2011, so he's a little older than Levante. 153 tackles for loss. Von Miller, 2011, 164 tackles for loss. Levante David, 2012, 160. So he has considerably more than Cameron Jordan, even though he's younger than Cameron Jordan.
Yep.
He's only 4 behind future Hall of Fame pass rusher Von Miller in tackles for loss.
And the difference is that all of those are D linemen. They're edge rushers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Levante David is getting those tackles for loss from the linebacker spot while also boasting league best passing defense stats.
Yeah, I mean, this whole top 10, Terrell Suggs, J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, Calais Campbell, Julius Peppers, Jared Allen, DeMarcus Ware, all defensive linemen. The only linebacker even sniffing in near the top 10 is Brian Urlacher at 13.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's just another feather in his cap on why he's one of the greatest linebackers ever. And he'll never be talked about it like that because people around the league don't realize what he's done in his career
And
because he has one Pro Bowl.
Whack. Yeah. So whack.
But you hold him up to anybody.
And he beats him.
Brian Urlacher, Bobby Wagner, all these guys who people worship as linebackers. Levante's better. Yeah. He's better than Brian Urlacher was. He's better than Bobby Wagner. I think Kuechly, if you consider longevity and health, you got to give it to Levante there.
If you consider longevity, yes. I think I will still give it to Kuechly. That guy was a friggin' monster.
I agree. But here we are, like 3 years after Kuechly retired, 4 years after he retired, and Levante's still doing it at the same time.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's like him and Kuechly are the top 2.
Yeah. Who's the linebacker who's going into the Hall of Fame next year?
Kuechly?
San Francisco.
Oh, Patrick Willis?
Patrick Willis, yeah.
Yeah.
Another one, Levante, right there with him. Great.
Yep. Kuechly's also on the ballot next year.
Has he been retired that long? That's wild.
Yep.
But he should get in.
Oh, he should. Absolutely. Yeah.
Willis and Kuechly. 2 short careers, but incredible when they played.
100%.
Levante David, in the same breath as them.
Yeah, he's great.
Longer career, every bit as good.
Yep. 100%.
So yeah, him A++. Another guy who I want to give an A to is KJ Britt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Do you remember when he was drafted in the first year or 2 of his career?
Special teams.
We were very critical of him.
Yeah, we were both like, yeah, special teams. That's what he's gonna do, right?
Yeah, too slow. He's an old school thumper between the tackles. He's very, very limited to what he can be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This preseason, and we talked about it then, he looked like a different guy.
Oh my God! Like coverage, great, fast, like decisive. All the things you want in a linebacker, he showed.
Yeah, it's like he lost 30 pounds somehow, but still kept all that physicality.
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. Like from a shock, like, oh, I did not expect that at all. He leads my players, right? Like, I don't think there's anyone on the team I was shocked more with than KJ Britt. So happy that that was that case too.
Yeah, and it was so cool to see it translate to the regular season when he took Devin White's job. Because a lot of players flash in the preseason, that's just routine stuff. But we saw it. The athleticism looked different, and it was every bit as good in the regular season as it was in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, there were some coverage miscues, but I mean that's going to happen, right? Like no player's perfect. But I mean, from the moment he stepped in place of Devin White, you could tell the level of play increased significantly.
And it goes back to just that fundamental stuff. He was where he was supposed to be.
Yep.
And he'll continue to have limited coverage skills. He's never going to fool anyone to think he's Fred Warner.
Oh yeah, no.
But he looks like a very capable run stuffing functional linebacker for the NFL.
100%. I mean, if as long as Levante David is playing at a high level and you keep KJ Britt, I think you're okay at the linebacker spot.
Yeah, I feel really good about that tandem for next year.
Yep.
All right, let's get to one that's a little bit more complicated.
Mm.
Corner.
Yeah, this one's tough.
Some ups and downs for sure.
Because of that, I think I'm going to give them like a B-. They obviously had their moments, and they were good in the playoffs when they needed to be. But it was just so inconsistent all year, really.
Yeah, injuries were a factor.
Of course.
I think Dean and Davis both missed games.
Yep.
Even when Dean hadn't missed time, he looked really rough at certain parts of the season.
It was like early, like that losing streak at the beginning of the year was brutal to watch.
Yeah, definitely not his best ball. He did come on later in the year.
Yeah.
Davis, I thought, okay. He had a solid year. Wasn't his best, wasn't his worst.
Right.
Again, injuries were a factor. But he's always a specific type of corner. He's going to shut down big body receivers like A.J. Brown, and he's always going to struggle against quicker guys.
Yep. It's just how it's going to be, and that's fine. But you got to live with those limitations, right?
Yeah. I'm happy to keep his skill set and just give the nod to someone like Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill or even Scotty Miller. It's just fast.
You got a pretty good player on the back end to help out too. So
sure. Yeah. But it's worth it for that trade-off to know I can put him one-on-one with people like A.J. Brown or DeAndre Hopkins, and he can just body them.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
One name we haven't really mentioned, who I think deserves a lot of praise.
Yeah.
Zion McCollum.
Yeah, he was way better this year. He still had his struggles, of course, but he looked much, much better.
Yeah. And
you could throw him out there and it's not a free reception, which I mean doesn't seem like it's really saying a lot, but a lot of the time it was like he was trying to make a play on the ball and he was close.
Yeah, and he was still far from perfect this year. Far from perfect. A lot of cleaning up to do.
Yeah.
But we talked about it last year. He looked awful.
It was a free reception or like a PI or something. It was bad.
We said then this guy needs 2 redshirt years because he's so far away right now.
Yep.
And the physical gifts, outstanding. Size, speed.
Always.
Bonkers tools.
Yep.
So to see him actually take a step forward and kind of have that second redshirt year where you can see the development, I feel really optimistic about him as a depth piece going into next year.
He was also an ace on special teams, by the way. He was so good.
Yeah, could improve his tackling a little, but he can fly down the field.
I mean, he gets down there, yeah.
So, I mean, it's a credit to Todd Bowles, too. No one develops DBs like Todd Bowles.
Correct.
He's incredible when it comes to the secondary.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, defense as a whole, like it's his thing, of course, but
sure. But that's where he played. He was a safety.
Yeah, his secondary, that's like his calling card.
And we'll talk about it here in a minute when we get to that. But corner, and he moved to Zion to safety for some of the playoff.
Yep.
So Zion deserves a ton of credit. Todd deserves a ton of credit. Huge development, and I think the best is yet to come. We can actually have conversations about potentially cutting a guy like Carlton Davis because Zion McCollum could step in and fill that role.
I need to see a bit more before I go there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want that to happen, but I feel confident with the way he's trending.
Sure.
Any other corners you want to mention? Because those are the big 3 right there.
Honestly, yeah, no,
We'll save Izzian for the safeties because he is a safety,
yeah,
even though he
he's
plays
a
nickel.
safety. Yeah.
So let's go there. Safeties.
Yeah, I'm gonna just exclude Ryan Neal. He's like his own category. probably consistently was the worst player on the defense this year. Whereas Antoine Winfield was probably consistently the best player on the defense this year. Antoine Winfield and Izien get like an A+. Izien for what he was doing as an undrafted rookie, outstanding stuff. There are some penalties that he's got to clean up, but love what I saw out of him. And then, I mean, Antoine Winfield was the best safety in football this year. I mean, that guy, I mean, he's been doing it for years now, like good ball, but like this was another level. First team all pro, like that's legit all you have to say. I mean, there was nothing he did poorly. I mean, there's maybe one thing, but like there's like no words. He was outstanding, truly. Interceptions, tackles for loss, sacks, forced fumbles, all of it. Clutch plays, like everything you need, he had.
Absolutely agreed. He was the best safety in the NFL this year. I have no hesitation with that.
Nope.
And that was a big step for him because going into this year, he was a very, very good player.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you talked about the 10 best safeties in the league, Antoine is in that list.
Yep.
But he wasn't top 3. He wasn't top 5. He was floating around that 8, 9, 10 range, and I was very happy with that.
Yep.
The way he grew in terms of forcing fumbles and turnovers and just going back to natural safety and playing less nickel, he really thrived in a way I wasn't expecting.
Right. And, you know, like for him, it comes at no better time, right? He's an upcoming free agent, got to make a lot of money. And from the Bucs perspective, I'm sure they're confident they can keep him around, and they're happy that he played his best ball this year. I mean, you always have, and they're probably going to end up franchise tagging him, which is fine because that just gives them more time to work out a deal, right? And if you don't work out a long-term deal, you still have him next year. So,
yeah. As the wave of Levantes and Mike Evans start to transition out of their prime and out of the league, the wave of Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield Jr. and potentially Kalijah Cansey, that's that next group of all-pro caliber players, potentially Buck for life Hall of Fame.
Lad McConkey.
Love it. I'd be glad with Lad. Then you mentioned Izien.
Yeah.
Really, really good rookie year for an undrafted guy. For anyone, but to go undrafted and be a solid starter all year long, again, Todd Bowles.
Can't ask for more. Yeah, can't ask for more. There are probably some rookies, a lot of rookies that got drafted that didn't sniff what he did on the field.
No. He wasn't Brian Branch, who was probably the best rookie defensive back in the year playing the same role.
Yeah. I mean, Brian Branch was severely underdrafted.
But he was a top 5 player in the draft.
So good, yeah.
So it's okay that he wasn't Brian Branch.
But he was also undrafted. Like, you don't expect them to be.
And he gives the Bucs so much flexibility going into this next season, whether he stays at nickel or with Ryan Neal probably got the door. They could drop him back to strong safety and draft another nickel.
Yep.
He has given them, as an undrafted guy, so much flexibility, so many options, and he is just nothing but intelligence and toughness and doing those little things that need to be done, and he's a great run defender. There's a lot to like about Izien, so he gets a big old A.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Really couldn't ask for more from him.
And then D. Delaney, he's worth mentioning. I thought he had a really solid year. He's cemented himself as a depth piece who I feel comfortable with.
You're right. I forgot about Delaney.
Yeah, it feels like he kind of disappeared for a while.
Yeah, I don't know why, given Ryan Neal's continuous struggles.
Yeah, Neal. I feel like Neal is a little bit better than he gets painted as. He's a strong safety. He's a box safety. So I think times when he was exposed in coverage, that's probably just kind of.
I was more so the tackle angles. Oh man, they were atrocious. He
Yeah,
didn't know how to
not the
run at
fastest
an angle.
guy.
It's not even that. It's just running the correct direction. Like, take an angle, man. Don't just run straight at the ball carrier.
Yeah, he was a bargain bin signing who did really well in Seattle last year, filling in for Jamal Adams.
Yeah,
But we're seeing why he's been a depth guy his full career.
correct.
So, Ryan Neal, thank you for your service. Godspeed.
Yep. That's it. That's all.
All right.
Special teams.
Special teams. A,
Chase
A,
McLaughlin,
A,
A.
A.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Camarda, A.
Yeah. I don't care about the coverage, honestly. That we don't count that.
I mean, I care about it. I don't care about
Yeah.
it enough to grade individual
Grade it.
coverage
Yeah.
players.
Exactly. It should be better. That's what we grade it as. Rashid Shaheed needs to chill out.
Yeah, just one of those things that it's expected. Like, no, they're not supposed to return at 50 yards.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Just
Yeah.
get down there, do your job.
Yeah, just let that not happen and we'll be all right.
Sure. So I think McLaughlin, he has cemented himself as a long-term priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got the big leg. He was really accurate. It's unfortunate he missed his one of his only kicks this year in the playoffs in the game against the Lions, but
Yeah.
you're playing the odds.
Yeah, and that was like at the very outer ranges of his range, I'm pretty sure, right?
I think it was 50 plus, I think, and for his career he's been more accurate in the 50 range than he has the 40 range, I think.
But I think his career max is like 53.
I think he's got a bigger leg than that. I think he gets like 57. I'll Google
I gotta
it,
look.
He's a big leg.
Yeah, he has a big leg, but I don't think he's hit big. Well, he's hit big, but not like big. Chase McLaughlin.
Okay. Let's see what the NFL has in terms of kicker stats.
Yeah. What year is this? What is the long? Does it show it?
Not on NFL.com, but
yeah, I'm looking
for
at
his career between 50 and 59, he's 24 of 28.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, he's for sure money from 50 plus, but that is like pushing it.
Where is here we go. Pro Football Reference. This should tell me because this is.
Oh no, it's 57. I'm tripping. Okay.
Yeah, he's got a big leg.
Anytime you get past the 50 mark, it gets, suspect. That's just because it's a further kick, but
yeah, 57 this year was as long. He had 57 2 years ago. 54.
Okay. He's got a cannon. Yeah.
Yeah. So bring Chase back at all costs.
Yes, for sure.
If you have to franchise tag Chase McLaughlin, make him the highest paid kicker in the game. I do not care. I just cannot live with instability at kicker anymore.
Yeah, it's bad.
All right. Any final thoughts? Do you want to mention coaching staffs for defense, anything like that?
I don't really think there are changes, right?
No. No real changes. It's going to be Todd Bowles, Larry Foote.
Yeah.
Same crew coming back.
That's all right. I don't think I have anything to really touch on. What are we doing next week? Just to give a little preview.
I think.
Fine.
Are we doing combine preview or are we doing mock draft next week?
Oh, we're doing mock draft next week. Yeah.
Combine the week after.
And then combine the week after. We're doing a pre-combine 7-round Buccaneers mock draft next week. Mock drafts are always fun. We're going to give y'all rundowns of all our picks. JT and I, we're going to leave it up to ourselves. If you have a trade that you kind of want to make, you can make it. Use whatever simulator you want. If y'all want to make some mock drafts and, submit them in the chat, we'd love to talk through some as well. That'd be fun, I think. But yeah, the combine's in 2 weeks, so we're going to go ahead and do this pre-combine mock draft now. See if any of the guys we draft test like trash or test well. If they test like trash, they probably won't be a Buck. But we'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I think that is going to do it for this episode of the Creamsicle Chronicles podcast. We appreciate y'all tuning in as always and listen to us ramble on about Bucs football for an hour. Y'all have a good night, good rest of your weekend. As always, go Bucs.
Go Bucs.